Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching this in the world. I hope you guys are doing okay. So as of today, at the time of this recording, it is 3:18 on the 10th of March, and we are 130 days away from EVO. And so for those of you that don't know, although I'm sure most of you do, EVO is the biggest fighting game tournament in the world. It's the one that attracts the most eyes, and it's the one where a lot of fighting game developers and fighting game players both get to demonstrate their new games and their new skills. So it's a really big deal in the fighting game community. That popular Daigo clip that you would have seen where Daigo is parrying all of Justin Wong's attacks that he was doing with Chun-Li, that comes from EVO. That's probably the most legendary moment in the history of EVO, possibly one of the most legendary moments in the history of gaming. It's definitely in the top 10. But today we're going to be talking about Mortal Kombat 1 and its EVO showing. Now this is going to be Mortal Kombat 1's first showing at EVO, and I wanted to go over where it's ranked right now in terms of early registrations and the discussion on Twitter. So it's going to be a very brief video, and we'll update you with news as it comes. So as you can see here, this is as of March 9th, so yesterday. The number one registered game so far is Street Fighter 6, followed by Tekken 8, Guilty Gear Strive, Grand Blue Fantasy vs Rising, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, which is surprising to see it so high on there, Under Night in Birth 2, Mortal Kombat 1, and then the King of Fighters. A lot of people are very surprised by where Mortal Kombat 1 is placed. I'm not one of those people, but a lot of people are very surprised. And since the leaderboards have been posted, people have been online basically roasting Mortal Kombat 1 or just showing how surprised they are that a game that has only just come out is losing to a game that came out in 1999. So as you can see here, Conflictor says MK1 is cooked. Ghost from Third Strike says this makes sense with the exception of Mortal Kombat 1. Sad part is Warner Brothers owns NetherRealm Studios, and this is a result of Warner Brothers just not caring about the competition scene, and as a result players don't care as much. I genuinely hope MK1 and NRS can bounce back and gain momentum. I believe that this is half true. I do believe that Warner Brothers has shown a complete lack of care for Mortal Kombat and for NRS, but I also believe that NRS is part to blame in this. And the reason I'm saying that is that whilst Warner Brothers has been very poor in regulating some of the things behind the scenes of Mortal Kombat, the actual infrastructure and the way Mortal Kombat 1 is designed is exclusively done by NetherRealm Studios. It is with their input and their influence and their design philosophy. Now we've seen in the past games that don't have a lot of support. Case in point, Super Smash Bros. Melee. And Smash Bros. Melee was able to survive really on its own through the power of the community because people loved the game so much and they thought that it was so rich with content with regards to the gameplay. The same can't be said for Mortal Kombat 1. And Mortal Kombat 1 showing at this EVO should really tell you that this is a casual game. This was a game created for the casual market. It's not a game for the competitor. This really shows here, but we'll go into that a little bit more as we read the tweets. And then you've got Ship here saying NRS doesn't get off that easy. NRS shares the blame for making MK into a shallow freemium game, and that is true, and that's what I was saying just now. They have just as much to blame really with the state of Mortal Kombat as Warner Brothers does. If not, I would place more blame on NetherRealm Studios, but again we'll talk about that in a little bit. Ghost from 3S says I do agree, but that's a whole other issue. Players not being motivated to play Mortal Kombat 1 on a competition level, however, is due to Warner Brothers just refusing to financially help in any capacity. Again, I think that's half true because as we've seen very recently, as we can see with Final Kombat, they did up the pot, and even with the increase of the Final Kombat pot, it did not see a massive spike in players. Now that might have changed at the point of this recording, but last time I checked it hadn't really moved much. SBJ says no cap, I think they should replace Mortal Kombat 1 with Dragon Ball FighterZ. This is a sentiment that I actually agree with. I think A, Dragon Ball FighterZ is a more interesting game to watch, and B, I think with the recent passing of Akira Toriyama, it's a good opportunity for EVO and the fighting game community to pay tribute to Akira Toriyama. Again, Dragon Ball FighterZ would not exist without the man, and he was so influential on both the anime and gaming world that I think having Dragon Ball FighterZ with one last send-off before the game is basically finished at EVO would be ideal. Mortal Kombat 1 is not an enjoyable game to watch, and it's barely enjoyable to play, at least in my opinion. But Dragon Ball FighterZ, even though I'm not very good at the game, I still think it's a lot more fun, and it's a lot more fun to watch, a lot more hype. And again, I think it would be the perfect opportunity to do a massive send-off to the game and pay tribute to Akira Toriyama, who for a lot of us in the fan game community has had a massive part in our upbringing. A lot of us feel like we were raised by Akira Toriyama in some sense. You've got Amorphous Muffin here saying rest in peace Mortal Kombat 1, sheesh. And yeah, it's pretty pretty brutal for a game that's only been out for 6 months to be basically at the bottom of the leaderboard. Bear in mind, King of Fighters has been out for 3 years now, and so it might be weird to see the King of Fighters so low there as well. And I do think it's a bit of a shame that King of Fighters doesn't have more popularity, because I do think it's genuinely a good fighting game. But for Mortal Kombat 1, which is deemed as one of the big 3 fighting games, to be so low on the list is really telling of what its community thinks of it. Despian Comorant says, I'll be honest, I kind of wish Mortal Kombat 1 wasn't treated as a sort of mandatory inclusion, because I feel like there's plenty of other games that do better numbers. It's never the biggest game at EVO, but this is really depressing. Again, that's a sentiment that I agree with. I do think there's other games that people will be more interested in seeing. Dragon Ball FighterZ comes to mind straight away. Now, Dragon Ball FighterZ has been out for about 5 or 6 years, and its player base has definitely dwindled down. But that happens when games have been out for a very long time. It's very rare that they're able to maintain or grow their player base. That's something we've only really seen with games like Tekken 7, Super Smash Bros. Melee, and there's a few others sprinkled here and there. But I do think that it's an opportunity again to bring in Dragon Ball FighterZ and replace it with Mortal Kombat 1, because people just don't care. They're just not interested. This is a tournament for the hardcore, right? But EVO is so big that you get a lot of casuals coming, and even then nobody's interested. And there's no excuse to say, well, why would casuals travel for a game like Mortal Kombat when they can just sit at home and play it? And my answer to that is, well, people do it for Tekken and Street Fighter. Tekken and Street Fighter's EVO numbers are mostly made up of casual to intermediate players. They're not really made up of pro players in its entirety. Obviously the pro players, when you get to the top, are the ones you're going to be seeing the most, because they're the best players. But the numbers that trickle into the tournament, those are made up of people that are semi-decent at the game to quite casual. Melty Blood looking at Mortal Kombat 1 like, and you got the Kurt Angle meme there. And even if you remove the casual element and we just look at this as a hardcore player base, this is extremely telling that Mortal Kombat's people are not showing up for the game. MK1 being that low is not surprising. King of Fighters being lost does surprise me somewhat. It is a little bit surprising that King of Fighters is lost. I would have thought it would have been Under Night in Birth or Melty Blood, but King of Fighters being lost is quite telling, I guess. But King of Fighters is not really seen as one of the big ones anymore. I think it's still regarded as one of the legendary fighting games. I still see it that way anyway. To me, it used to be Street Fighter and King of Fighters when I was a kid, but that's definitely fallen off and that's sort of changed. And I guess Tekken is seen as the direct competition now, even though the gameplay styles are so different. And there's definitely more similarities between King of Fighters and Street Fighter. It's just night and day. MK1 got beat by Under Night and Third Strike, and I think the Third Strike one is really surprising. Now, it is 2024. Third Strike came out in 1999. I believe the original Street Fighter 3 was like 97 or 98, but it has been over 20 years, 25 years since Third Strike came out. And bear in mind, guys, when Third Strike came out, it was universally hated by people. I mean, the hardcore players in the arcades liked it, but it took a while for them to even turn over to it. Third Strike was not really a beloved game until much later down the line, and even then it's still considered to be very niche in comparison to other Street Fighter games, and still Third Strike beats Mortal Kombat. Now, yeah, Third Strike has also beaten King of Fighters, which is not good for King of Fighters by any stretch of the imagination. It shows that King of Fighters is dying and they need to change their formula, in my opinion. I do like King of Fighters. I think it's a good game, but there's obviously something that's not sticking there, and so I don't want King of Fighters to disappear into obscurity. I would like to see it come back in a big way. I think it's time for a change as well. But if we just focus on Mortal Kombat 1, again, this is regarded as one of the big 3, and if you're one of the big 3, even if this is not a casual place and it's a more hardcore place, you should still be showing up. You should still at least be just behind Guilty Gear. Silent K Gamer says, so no Mortal Kombat 1 at EVO 2025. I think that's probably safe to say, unless they change the game around, unless there's some major developments with Mortal Kombat. I doubt we're going to see it return. I can't see it being there. If there's other fighting games that come out that are probably bigger than it, maybe Virtua Fighter will be out by this time and it will have a place at EVO. That's something I would like to see. Although I did hear the rumor with Virtua Fighter is that it's going to be 2026, which is actually pretty good because there's an abundance of fighting games right now. We still got some more coming out later down the line, like Tenkaichi 4 for example, or Sparking Zero. And even though that's not really a traditional fighting game, that is still going to garner a lot of attention because it's a Tenkaichi game and people love it. So Virtua Fighter being way off in the distance, I think that's perfectly fine. I don't want to see Virtua Fighter right now because my time is already very thin when it comes to gaming as it is, and I can't even get around to finishing Yakuza or Final Fantasy and also playing Tekken and also doing YouTube, so I don't want another Virtua Fighter right now, as much as I might love the franchise. Street Fighter beat Mortal Kombat not once but twice, with one game being from 1999. Yeah, I mean, people are going to take this opportunity to clown NRS now. And to be honest with you, they kind of deserve it. There is nothing unusual. Mortal Kombat players take time to sign up. This is something that I want to focus on. Why do Mortal Kombat players say this? I've asked them multiple times. I've asked multiple people. Maybe someone can answer me in the comment section. Maybe we can get some dialogue going. This has been a talking point that Mortal Kombat players take longer to sign up than every other scene. Is there a particular reason? Do Mortal Kombat players wake up later than everybody else? Do they go to bed later? Are they busy working several jobs unlike everybody else? Do they just think they're too cool to be there early to sign up? Because again, these are early registrations, and the narrative has always been NRS players, Injustice and Mortal Kombat, take a long time to sign up. Can someone please let me know in the comment section below? Because to me, this sounds like a lot of coke. If there's some sort of data we can gather, some sort of analytics that we can look at to corroborate these sort of statements, because it makes no sense. Why would NRS players take longer to sign up than everybody else? Also, I think this is a lot of hogwash, because if you go back and you look at NRS's showing at EVOs, the numbers always dwindle anyway. So I think this is cope on the behalf of a scene that doesn't want to accept that it's dying. I mean, obviously they have to accept that the game is dying competitively. They won't even show up for their own game. But to give them the benefit of the doubt, we will cover this close to the time when we have the finalized numbers to see where Mortal Kombat 1 is sort of sitting, and then we can get a better idea of how the community and how the more tuned in players are feeling towards the game. This being Mortal Kombat 1's first year at EVO should speak volumes to Warner Brothers and NRS. Although these are only early numbers, Mortal Kombat isn't niche like Grand Blue or Unist. Something needs to change. That's exactly right. Something does need to change with Mortal Kombat. Now, I do plan on doing a video discussing what I think needs to change on Mortal Kombat, but we'll save that for another day, or maybe it'll be later today. We'll see how my day goes, but something definitely needs to change. Mortal Kombat is not a niche. Mortal Kombat sells more than all of these games on the list. Mortal Kombat is the highest seller. I don't think it's going to be the case for Mortal Kombat 1, because I do think NRS and Warner Brothers' bad business practices and game design is starting to catch up with them. But historically, Mortal Kombat 1 has had bigger payouts than some of these games up until Street Fighter 6, of course, and B, has been regarded as the one that sells the most. If you go and look at the sales charts for these games, Mortal Kombat 1 basically blows everybody else out of the water. What happened to Mortal Kombat 1? I figured the recently released games would be at the top of the registration leaderboards. Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8, not surprising. But yeah, Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8 are not surprising because they have been universally loved by both casuals and the hardcore. Now, that's not to say they don't have problems. I think Tekken 8 has a couple problems. The more I play it, the more I start to see them, both in balancing and the rage quit situation. They are pretty out of whack right now. Street Fighter 6 has had its problems with microtransactions and the game's starting to feel a bit lackluster, but I do think that's changing. The recent inclusion of Ed is a really big deal. I think he's a very cool character design, and if they keep going down that road, I think they're onto something really special with Street Fighter 6. But Mortal Kombat 1 in its first year doing this poorly is really poor. Mortal Kombat being beat by Grand Blue, Third Strike and Under Night in Birth is really funny. With every passing day, it's more and more clear that Mortal Kombat 1 was created to make money and never intended on actually to accomplish what it needed to be successful, being a solid fighting game. And that is as true a statement as you can get. If you look at the model of Mortal Kombat 1, it's clear that they're going to go down the live services route. And that's something that I want to discuss in this video. I was going to make a separate video about it, but we might as well just talk about it in this one. Mortal Kombat 1 was not designed for people like me or people like you watching behind the monitor. It was designed for your Tom, Dick and Harry, and that's not an insult on those people at all. It's not a put down in any way, shape or form. Games are designed for different people. But something that myself and I think a lot of other people in this space have struggled with is the design philosophy behind Mortal Kombat 1 and why they've taken certain shortcuts and why the game is lacking in so much, both in offline content and in the actual fight content. And I think it's time to just accept that Mortal Kombat 1 is not a competitive fighting game. It's not designed to be one. It's designed to be a cash grab. It's designed to be for the casual player. It has a rotating store, so that should tell you everything that you need to know about the design philosophy behind the game. It's got a bunch of modes that are completely lacking. There's sort of like drips and drabs coming in every now and then. The balance changes are completely devoid of any logic or anything you would expect to see from people that know how to develop a coherent and cohesive fighting game. And so if we come to accept Mortal Kombat's transition into the casual scene and its permanent home there, or at least Mortal Kombat 1's anyway, maybe we can come to accept the game for what it is. Now, I'm going to explore that a little bit more in another video. As much as we might shit on Mortal Kombat 1 and it deserves every single bit of our shit. I think the franchise as a whole should be celebrated. It's just very sad to see where things have gone. So before we get back to doing the tweets and reading through them, I do want to cover this WB situation with live services, because I do think it is going to affect Mortal Kombat going future. And whilst I did have some optimistic beliefs about Mortal Kombat 2 or Mortal Kombat 12 or whatever they decide to call it, I don't know, I do think that this recent decision by WB could affect them. Now, I've heard stories that Mortal Kombat's contract and NRS's contract with WB will be coming to an end, and this is like the final game for them, but that's like a lot of hearsay. I don't have any like valid information on that or evidence to really back it up. That's just something I heard. But in the event that Mortal Kombat is staying with NRS at WB, I do think this information is worth talking about. We'll go over it very briefly and maybe we'll explore it later down the line. So in a tweet here, you can see that Shinobi has updated saying WB sees its future game strategy to involve more live service, mobile and free-to-play games. Rather than just launching a one-and-done console game, how do we develop a game around, for example, a Hogwarts Legacy or Harry Potter that is a live service where people can live and work and build and play in that world on an ongoing basis, said Warner Bros. Games CEO JB Perrett. I do think it's funny that they bring up Hogwarts Legacy, considering that was the best-selling game of 2023, and so they want to take the model that they had that worked and apply it in a model that is historically very contentious and controversial and people don't like. And this is where you can really see the money grabbing and money hungry philosophy behind WB, and probably why they are failing, not just on the gaming front but on many fronts, that they jump to things that they know people are not going to like but looks good on paper and could potentially garner them more money. Now if they go down this route, then I see Mortal Kombat being shoehorned into this just because the name carries a lot of weight. But I've got two screenshots from the article here to read you guys just so you get more of an understanding of what's going on. He said, we're doubling down on games as an area where we think there is a lot more growth opportunity that we can tap into with the IP that we have and some of the capabilities we have on the studio, where we're uniquely positioned as both a publisher and a developer of games. Perrett said WB Discovery's recent gaming output has focused on the AAA games for console, and that's great when a game like Hogwarts Legacy sells 22 million copies and becomes the best-selling game of the year, but this kind of success is never guaranteed in what Perrett said was a volatile market. He pointed out that one of WB Discovery's latest big games, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, was a complete disappointment for the company. Yes, it was dog shit. So the plan going forward, he said, is to help reduce volatility by focusing on core franchises and bringing at least some of them to the mobile and free-to-play space, as well as continuing to invest in live service games that people play and spend money on. Over a long period of time, this will help Warner Bros. Discovery generate more consistent revenue, he said, going on to tease that Warner Bros. Discovery had some new mobile free-to-play games coming this year. Also worth noting is that just because Warner Bros. Discovery may push into new places, that doesn't necessarily mean it will stop making big single-player AAA games. Rather than just launching a one-and-done console game, how do we develop a game around, for example, a Hogwarts Legacy or a Harry Potter that is a live service where people can live and work and build and play in that world on an ongoing basis? And I do think that that is some cause for concern, and I do think Mortal Kombat could find itself becoming a live service game. Now it's my hope that the Mortal Kombat franchise is sold off to a different developer and Warner Bros. And NRS have nothing to do with it going forward. I think there's a lot of rich lore in Mortal Kombat, there's a lot of cool characters, and there's a lot of things that you can do with the game, and I do think NRS are taking advantage of that. I do think WB do not recognize that, and I think it's high time, given the last two games of Mortal Kombat, that it goes somewhere else, or at the very least NRS brings in new people to work on the game, because they don't seem to know what they're doing right now. Although the game has sold very well, and that is true, they tried to market this as a competitive game. It is at EVO, the biggest tournament in the world, and it's very clear that players do not respect it as a competitive game. So bear in mind that I'm not talking as a casual gamer here, I'm talking as somebody that's more in tune with the hardcore. I don't think they know what they're doing. But let's get back to the tweets. Am I crazy? Street Fighter Third Strike is an old game and it got more participants than Mortal Kombat. Does NRS not have any shame? Imagine being Mortal Kombat 1 selling the most out of every fighting game and being damn near last place only 6 months in. MK1, that load tells me a lot. And replace Mortal Kombat 1 with Dragon Ball FighterZ. The response to the EVO post has overwhelmingly been with a spotlight on Mortal Kombat. Players from all walks of life and all fighting games are commenting on the Mortal Kombat 1 situation, and I do think that this is going to bring more light to the problems with Mortal Kombat. I don't really think that Warner Bros. And NRS care. I think they've made their money on the game. I think the game is going to continue to make money because of the audience it was catering catered to, and I think that this is going to be a trajectory that continues with Mortal Kombat going forward now. The only way it's going to change is if people vote with their wallets. Now, one thing that I need to realize, because I tried to not live in delusion as well, is that even though I'm talking to you guys and we're the more tuned in players, as in we're the ones that are paying attention to it on a competitive front and we're paying attention to the little nooks and crannies of the games, that isn't the overwhelming majority of the audience. Unfortunately, the overwhelming majority of the audience just don't care about what we're talking about, and it's something that we just need to accept. It doesn't mean that I'm going to stop bringing light to the situation. It doesn't mean that there isn't a glimmer of hope that somebody will pull their heads out of their asses and actually create a game that is respectable both for casuals and both for hardcore, because Tekken and Street Fighter managed to do it, so why can't Mortal Kombat? But on the flip side of that, if they're making their money and they're doing half the work, do they really need to do it? And I think that's the golden question here. And I think that NRS's behavior following the game, the lack of updates and the really shitty updates that they've had, the poor balance patches, the poor inclusion of characters, releasing the wrong seasons, just the lack of modes on the game, the wait to make things work, the wait for crossplay, and crossplay is not even in King of the Hill. It goes to show you that they don't really care about the game. But we don't know what the exact numbers of the EVO entrants are yet. So we're going to see as time goes on. We're going to see if it picks up or if it continues to dwindle down. Remember, this is only early registration, so where that guy said that NRS players register very late, maybe King of Fighters players do as well. If we're going to apply that logic, maybe King of Fighters players just haven't got around to it yet. Maybe Mortal Kombat will finish last. Maybe it will jump up a little bit. I think Third Strike and Under Night in Birth being above it is really, really telling, but I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and we will continue covering this EVO situation as it develops. I'm sure there's going to be more advanced players that are going to weigh in on the situation, and we'll update you as that comes. Take care guys, have a good day and peace.